Well, yeah, like, I'm trying to... I mean, it's neodymium. I mean, it's a strong magnet. If anything, like, if I was to be a little magnet boy, don't you think it would just easily... Oh, what's that? Well, how much makeup are you wearing? No, that's actually that's a common thing. Like, every single person you've ever seen on camera has some amount of makeup on them, unless, you know, you're just doing a vlog apologizing for something you did and sitting on your bathroom and crying. I don't know, I guess we have to break it down. Okay, well, at least no one heard me say it. Love you, bye. Hello, and welcome to... Oh, don't put this near the hard drives. Hello, and welcome to Office Hours, a live component of the facility where good old Professor Kyle opens up his blast doors and allows all of you, members of the general public who ignored all my warning signs outside of the facility, as well as all my facility staff members and security team, and all of my professors, interns, and research assistants and associates to come in, ask good old Professor Kyle a couple of questions, anything that you want, comments, questions, concerns, hair care tips, anything that you want for about the next hour. And while we do that and talk to you directly, we'll be going over a number of topics as we like to do each week. We'll be talking about possibly magnetic people. Look how depressed he is. We'll be talking about Bitcoin, maybe. And if we get to it, we'll also be talking about a slime invasion. But before all that, of course, throughout this episode, I'll be talking to you, and if you really want to have me see your comment live, you can put it in the chat. Make sure you're respecting our security team as you're doing that. If you're spamming, if you're doing all caps, they'll ban you. But you can also use Super Chat. As you can see, many of our lovely facility staff members coming in hot right now. That would be the easiest way to get me to see what you want me to see. And also, if you want to continue on this conversation after this video is live, you can also join the facility today to talk to me on Discord, to get behind-the-scenes photos, to get episodes early. This week's episode, ooh, she's a hot. About 2,000 degrees. As an example, Elizabeth Calvert, as usual, with the 50. Hey Kyle, my tiny human Alex's question of the week says, what are rare earth elements and why are they special? Well, actually, when rare earth elements were discovered, like yttrium, they're discovered a long time ago, little Alex, like in the 1700s, or 1800s, rather. And at the time, they thought they were rare. But today, we know that rare earth elements, rare earth metals, are not rare at all. In fact, there's a lot of them in the Earth's crust, more than, like, there's nitrogen and lead in the Earth's crust. So this would make lead a rare earth metal if you're just doing it by composition in the crust, but that is not the case. What makes them interesting and kind of rare is the fact that they are hard to process out of the ground. You don't find a hunk of neodymium, which is a rare earth element, here. You don't find it as just a big hunk of rock. It's usually chemically combined with other elements and minerals and ores, and so it takes a lot of effort to get them out of the ground, making them in that sense rare. But why they're so interesting is because they have very interesting mechanical, magnetic, and electromagnetic properties. For example, the rare earth metal neodymium is extremely strong permanent magnet, so that's why they're interesting. Chris Sparks with the $500 donation. There's no comment attached. But what I would imagine his comment is, if he had a comment attached, is, hey Kyle, love the show. Here's another ridiculous donation like I do every single week, and make sure the first segment of the show is dedicated to me. You got it, buddy. Cheech Ola with a $31 says, g'day Kyle. Why does friction produce heat? It's one of those things that I know, but when I ask my brain to explain it, it just says, because it do. Cheers, you legend. Friction produces heat because you can think of friction, and this is off the top of my head, but I am a smart boy. This is off the top of my head, but friction, if we want to think about it at its very base level, what could it possibly be? And if it's two materials sliding against each other, and materials are made out of atoms, of course, then friction and the movement of surfaces between each other constitutes trillions and trillions of tiny interactions and impacts as material is pushing past itself or another material, and little impacts transfer energy. And some of that energy, because there's always a loss of energy. Energy is always transformed into a more chaotic, less ordered form of energy during any interaction. This is what entropy basically says with impacts. So it can't be perfectly a perfect transfer of energy when you hit something. Some of it is inefficient and turns into a less organized form of energy, like heat or sound. So if you have trillions of little interactions, and some of them are not going to be 100%, well, all of them will not be 100% efficient, some of that impact energy has to go into another less ordered form, and that would be heat. But I don't know. That sounds like an intro physics 101 question that I got wrong. Black Iron Legion with the 10 says, can you tell this conspiracy nut, I'm assuming that's you, that put a comment under one... Oh, okay. Can you tell this conspiracy nut that put a comment under one of your community posts that the government is not using us as batteries? By the way, love your videos. I would say, and let's pause the super chats for a second so we can get on to topic number one, but the conspiracy theory is that the government is using us as batteries. Yeah, no, it's me. Yeah, some guy named, his name? Some weird avatar from an anime or something, I don't know. Yeah, he's on to the whole battery thing. Yeah, no, don't worry. I know there's not enough bioelectricity in the average human to produce that much energy. No. What? What do you mean you're a Wendy's? I always call the wrong number. Peyton with the 50 says, hey Kyle, I just went to Lake Tahoe. It's freezing. How many bodies do you think are down there? Magnetic people. Are there magnetic people? This man holds the Guinness World Record for the most spoons stuck to a person, and therefore has the record of the most, quote, magnetic person. The first thing that I want to point out is that if you truly thought that you had superpowers and you were getting some sort of record for it, why would you be that depressed? I mean, you can be depressed for any reason. Okay, forget it. He just looks angry. Ugh. Can't believe I have to sit here for this award ceremony for my magnetism. Ugh. But this claim about people being magnetic has been around for a long time, and recently, because of social media and because it's a net negative on society, social media has reignited the magnetic person idea in the context of vaccines. So people will say that vaccines contain metals, and because of that, step 1, vaccines contain metal. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, vaccines make you magnetic. I'm not really sure how they're going from metals are in vaccines to magnetic. I won't just let that point hang, however, even though that there are elements that are metals in vaccines. They are chemically bonded with other constituents in the vaccines. It's not like there's lumps of metal in vaccines. It's like saying that if you're consuming a lot of table salt, you're consuming a lot of metal. No, though there is sodium, which is an elemental metal in salt, sodium chloride, you wouldn't call it putting a bunch of metal into your body, would it? Because it's chemically bonded with a different element, which makes it completely different. Same thing in vaccines. So even though vaccines can contain, if you look at it elementally, some metals, they are bonded in a way that like table salt is bonded, so it doesn't act like a metal, it doesn't look like a metal. It would be disingenuous to call it putting metals in your body. But anyway, that still doesn't answer the question. Could people be magnetic in the first place? Well, what is the claim? The claim is that these people can stick metal objects to their body and have them hang there. To understand whether or not this could possibly work, we must first understand magnets. How do they work? Don't worry, Violent J. We'll get to it. Or whatever their names are. I don't care. Whoop whoop. So, how do magnets work? Well, magnets are an incredible example of a quantum mechanical effect that we can see with our own eyes in the macro scale world. So, even if you don't know anything about quantum mechanics, you probably know that it happens at the very smallest of scales. The very, very tiniest stuff can be quantum. And in most cases, quantum mechanical effects do not scale up into the size of stuff that we can see. It's just random and chaotic, and quantum effects cancel itself out. Some acting one way, some effects one way, the other way, this way, that way. So by the time it builds up into a large quantum system, such as you don't see weird effects of like people just phasing through buildings or, like quantum tunneling through buildings or something like that, because we are too complicated a system to see quantum effects at the macro scale. So at the quantum level, let's cover his face. He's depressing me. So at the quantum level, if you were to look at atoms and their constituents like protons and electrons and neutrons, we can characterize these particles as having what we call a magnetic moment. And this magnetic moment means that these particles, neutrons, protons, electrons, do act like tiny little magnets based on how they're moving around in the atom and what their quote-unquote spin is. It's a technical term, don't worry about it for now, but what you should know is that at the base level of atoms, the constituents of those atoms can act like little magnets. Now, you probably know that like charges repel and opposites attract. And so you can imagine that if you didn't have some of these magnetic moments aligned, the overall effect could cancel out, or it could add up. And so you're seeing here, if you're looking inside of an atom and you had two particle constituents, if their magnetic moment was unaligned, they would have a small magnetic field because these would act to quote-unquote cancel each other out and diminish the overall magnetic moment of the atom. On the other hand, if these constituents are lined up in their magnetic moments, then it can produce a larger magnetic field. Now, how do we get from that to something like this, which is a stack of 5 neodymium magnets? I have about 3,500 of these because I made a purchase that I thought I could do for a video, but then I did not get around to doing it. How do you get this quantum mechanical happenstance working up here in the real world? Well, thought experiment. Thought experiment. What if it was the case that in certain materials or elements, almost all of the magnetic moments were lined up? If almost all of the magnetic moments were lined up, then you could get this quantum mechanical effect working at the scale that we could actually see, because at every level, at this level, we go down further, microscopic, nanoscopic, down to the atomic level, we'd still see all these lined up moments. And indeed, that's what magnetism is. Magnetism, and when you see like a bar magnet or a refrigerator magnet or these neodymium magnets attracting to my Graph Gear 500 pencil, the finest pencil I've ever owned. Graph Gear, not a sponsor. When you see it acting here at our level, this is a quantum mechanical effect at our scale, thanks to how everything is aligned from the smallest scales on up. And you can put this you can apply this knowledge to understand how you could magnetize something that's non-magnetic or not ferromagnetic. So if you did this experiment as a kid in your science class or what have you, You take something like a nail, and if you run a strong magnet against that nail a number of times, like 30 or so times, you can partially magnetize the nail and it would stay partially magnetized for a little while. But think about what you're doing. You are using a strong magnetic field to align the magnetic moments in that non-magnetic thing for a certain amount of time, for a little amount of time. You are using an influence to line up the magnetic moments, and then it becomes magnetic itself. So, the lining up of magnetic moments at the smallest scales, if enough of them line up, the billions and billions and billions and trillions of them, then at our scale, for things that we can see, we get strong permanent magnets. Now I ask you this. Do you think that there are more atoms in you than there are in one of these small magnets? There is. There's just more of you. And you are a very large system compared to something like a refrigerator magnet. And so think of how many different chemicals, atoms, molecules, elements, think of how many things in your body would have to be perfectly aligned in all of their magnetic moments. And remember that things are moving around your body, your blood flow is moving, everything in your body is in constant flux, cells are splitting and dying, and your orientation of your body is constantly changing. Think of how many things would have to come together at the most complicated of scales to make you a strong magnet. I think if you think about what goes in to making this a strong magnet, if you think about that for just a moment, I think you get an idea that it would be very, very extraordinarily unlikely that you operate in the same way, that you are a system like this. So from a base physical and biological level, it's very unlikely that you as a system could ever be a strong permanent magnet. And because vaccines don't contain metals in the way that this is a metal, there's nothing to influence this magnetic moment either. So we've dealt with two legs of this conspiracy, but we haven't actually disproven the effects. We haven't addressed why this happens. How do people stick stuff to them? Well, I don't know if you were expecting me to say something amazing and quantum mechanical, or saying, as people in the chat are saying, but what if only your skin was magnetic? Well, your skin's the largest organ in your body. It's still asking a lot from a system, from every atom in your skin to be aligned in a certain way with their magnetic moments to produce some sort of magnetic field. And you can run, a compass across your body. It won't change. You can do these experiments. But how is this happening? Like I was saying, I don't know if you're expecting me to say something amazing, like some cool effect or anything. My dude's sticky. And what if you're looking for an alternate explanation for people who have this so-called ability, you'll notice a few consistent variables. Those variables being they're usually quite hairless. They're usually, how shall I say this? They're usually of a BMI that is higher. And they're usually putting things on their body in an orientation such that it's not overhanging. Like this. I can easily put my neodymium on this incredible Graph Gear 500 pencil. Graph Gear, not a sponsor. And it, because the magnetic force here is so strong, it easily defeats gravity. The magnetic force between these two counteracts gravity no problem. But you never, ever, and I challenge you, I never have ever seen any of these quote-unquote magnetic people be able to lean over like 90 degrees, get your body parallel to the ground, and then stick something to you. It doesn't work. So what that's pointing to is you have a lot of skin It doesn't have a lot of hair on it, so the surface area of your skin is in full contact. And we know that human skin produces a lot of oils, a lot of moisture. And if we put all of this together, we have an idea of what this effect could be. But how do we disprove that idea? Well, we would have to eliminate those variables, right? We'd have to eliminate the effects of skin stickiness itself. And that is exactly what a great man, a great skeptic, great science educator, James Randi, once did when he went overseas to challenge the claims of a man who said he was indeed magnetic. Let's watch. The first thing I'd like to point out is that this man is sticking a mirror to his skin. It's one of the failings of this magnetic claim, is that often they're sticking things to them that could not be magnetic in the first place. Also, he's noticing that he's quite hairless and that he's leaning backwards to take advantage of gravity. So see, I can put this mirror on my body. Now, I don't know if you've ever put a mirror to your own skin, but it's extremely... it adheres to your skin quite well. Now, what James Randi is going to do to eliminate the variable of skin stickiness, which would not affect magnetism. This is the important point in a scientific experiment. You want to eliminate only one variable at a time, because if you're eliminating more than one variable at a time, it gets very difficult to see what's actually going on. So if I were to put, what you're seeing here is talc, like baby powder. If I was to put baby powder on the surface of this magnet, it would not change that effect whatsoever. But would it change the effect on a human body?
I'm going to ask the challengers to put the powder on their hands and on their chests, and then make the object stay there.
Let's see. So this man agrees to this. He says, yes, you can put this baby powder on my body. Again, notice he's quite hairless. And now he tries to do the same effect. He tries to show the same effect with the underside of an iron. And as you can see, he cannot do it at all. And I'm assuming, I don't speak the language, but I'm assuming that says, busted. Oh. The look of disappointment. So, we have, like proper scientists, you and I, we have dealt with all legs of this conspiracy. Vaccines, though they contain elemental metals, do not contain metals in the form that you could say with a straight face are or act like clumps of metal. 2. From the physics and biophysics, we know that it's extremely unlikely, if not impossible, that a human system could act in such a quantumly aligned way that it would make it act like a permanent magnet. And 3, by removing the variable of skin stickiness, this effect disappears. Which tells us what? Vaccines do not make you magnetic. No one is magnetic. Everyone is sticky. Tom Smith from New Zealand with the 20 says, Kyle, greetings from New Zealand. Keep up the great work. Need all the science communicators we can get in this world we live in today. Cheers. Tom, your prime minister, or president, I forget what it's called, but your prime minister in New Zealand, she is fantastic. She is the only person the only world leader I've ever seen publicly. She made a video, she put it on Twitter, and she said, I just want to thank all the science communicators for helping get good information out during the pandemic and stuff. And I've never seen any world leader thank the science communicator field. And so I love New Zealand. I would love to visit as well. Breadboard, yeah. With the 20 says, water, fire, air, and dirt. Freaking Kyle, why do facts hurt? Hashtag Sim for Science. Hashtag never gonna be Magneto. Facts hurt because a lot of them are unintuitive. And we go through the world creating our own stories and our own narratives about how things work based on our own ingrained common sense. And when that common sense runs up on the ground of when your ship of common sense runs aground on the hard shore of fact, it can be quite jarring. Inazuma Fool with the 10 says, Kyle of the Hill is my favorite anime. Okay. Dang it. I have 3 questions. I'll spread them out, though. Question 1. Is something like the Spartan laser from Halo feasible in terms of power portability, like shoulder-mounted or wireless? The Navy has a laser. It doesn't look like the Spartan laser, but it has a laser that you can't see that can fry and explode drones at distance. So, kind of. But it's much too big. Thundercord with the 10 says, greetings, Kyle. Love the show. I am certain that you've already answered this before, but if someone already has COVID, should they still get the vaccine? Because COVID is probably going to be an annual kind of thing, like the flu, yes, you should still get the vaccine even after you've had COVID, because we know now that people can get reinfected with COVID, which means that your body, for whatever reason, getting COVID naturally is not producing the same kind of immune response that we'd want to protect you from COVID in a high efficacy kind of way. So yes, still get the vaccine. Everyone who gets it, every person is going to add to the benefit. Wait a sec. Oh, I'll do that next. Sean O'Brien with the New Zealand 10. A lot of New Zealanders. I love it. Kyle, I just got my first job in civil engineering. I'm so happy. I thought I'd share it a little love with a fellow civil boy. Thanks for the great science content. Sean, I'm so proud of you. I have a degree in civil engineering. I know how hard it is. I know how hard your classes were, how hard the FE and the PE was as a test. Good gracious. For those of you who don't know, that the first test that you have to take to certify that you have the basics of engineering knowledge after college or right before you end college, before you start working, it's called the Fundamentals of Engineering exam. It's the FE, we call it for short, and it's an exam that's 2 4-hour exams separated by 30 minutes. You're allowed 1 calculator, earplugs, or 2 calculators, earplugs, and some pencils. And the pass rate for the FE is 50%. If you pass the test, you've gotten 50% of the questions right, which shows you just how difficult the questions are. It's extremely stressful. So congratulations, Sean. I know it's tough. I hope you do some great engineering out there. Build a bridge. Name it after yourself. Like a boss. Tyrannosaurus Russ. Nice. With the 10, says, oh my God, there's iron in my Cheerios. Kellogg's must be trying to make us all magnetic. They'll never get me. Also, hey Kyle, love the show. Sim for science. Yeah. Classic little science experiment. Many governments and societies fortify their own population with minerals that they might not get in their day-to-day diet. So it's a public health measure, and it's a successful one. So if you didn't know, crush up your Cheerios as a little experiment, mortar and pestle, or just smash them. Crush up your Cheerios, then run a strong permanent magnet over the top of them, and you will get iron filings, little specks of iron gathering on the magnet, and that's because you're eating it and you need it. Same reason that you do that companies iodize salt, because you need some iodine. Drakkar Vance with the 100 MX. Don't know what that is, but thank you. Being magnetic like that would suck. Can you imagine how annoying it'd be to have metallic stuff stick to you all the time, or get trapped in an elevator because you're stuck to a wall? Sheesh. Yes, if you were truly magnetic, there'd be a lot of knock-on effects that you're not considering, and you're not considering them because no one's actually magnetic. I mean, stuff would be sticking to your butt all the time. Like, you just change and stuff and little filings, and you'd be dirty and just covered in little shards of metal everywhere. It would be really annoying. It'd be really annoying. I want to show you something. Now, some of you have been very vocal that you're not satisfied with the size of my coffee cup here. You think that either I gotten something wrong, either it's just too small to have any coffee in it, it's ridiculous, is Kyle huge, is your desk small? Well, I have something to tell you, okay? You think that I didn't intentionally have a small coffee cup? That's not just some weird scaling thing? Have you ever considered that maybe not only does these small coffee cups exist, but I prefer them? It's pure caffeine in liquid form. All that just for that little joke. These are from Japan. Of course they are. Nerdy Loki with the Australian $50 says, "Hey Kyle, how accurate is the scene from X-Men?" There's more than one of them. It's X-Men. From X-Men, where Magneto pulls the iron out of the guy's body to escape prison. Magneto would need just such a crazy high. Let me put it this way. If Magneto could pull the iron out of your body, he would be able to control magnetic fields so strong that he wouldn't be captured in the first place. He could make you float. He could rip you apart. I said what I wanted to say. Kristen Wagner with the Canadian 1669. Nice. "During the stream, I've stuck spoons in a smallish mirror to me, and I've concluded that I'm not a magnet and that my boobs are sticky." Kristen, you out there doing science's work. I appreciate that. Peer review. So, as I'm wont to do on every episode of Office Hours, I like to find a comment on the last episode of the facility and highlight it because it made me say, wow. And then you become an honorary member of the facility for an undetermined amount of time, and Kevin gives you a plaque. Or maybe a very tiny coffee cup. And last week at the facility, we were talking about Bitcoin and whether or not Bitcoin would actually destroy the environment. It's a long-ish technical episode. If you're interested in Bitcoin and you want to learn more about it, I think I did a decent job outlining the basics of how coins and coin technology works. And my conclusion was more or less that it's kind of on us to make crypto more environmentally friendly. It's not because of the technology itself that it's going to destroy the environment. And many coins are moving towards systems that could reduce the environmental impact to basically nothing overnight. And a lot of you were looking at that. And so I'm looking at some of the comments on the recent video right now. We have Gaming says Dogecoin dropped by 10%. My complete ape brain says heavy breathing by the dip. I'm going to be honest. Earlier this year, I bought into the hype and I did put some money in both Doge and Bitcoin and Ethereum. And at this moment, at the time I'm filming this episode, I'm not feeling so good. I am down money. But for the person that I want to highlight is Chris Nittle here, who has a metaphor that might help you understand, if my video didn't help, a little metaphor that might help you understand better the crypto situation as it exists right now. They say, there's a new, imagine this metaphor. There's a new technology that allows people to run on treadmills for money, and miles turn into dollars. Some clever people realized they could set up these treadmills under a car and run up the miles much more efficiently. When this happened, every car with decent gas mileage was bought up by the mile miners, and no one that just wanted a car to drive around in could get one at a reasonable price now. Non-mile miners saw this trend and started buying up all the cars with the best mileage and selling them on eBay for twice their value, them sons of guns. After this new technology became a popular way to turn gas into money, though, scientists and environmentalists started to notice the harm this was doing, dumping enormous amounts of carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxides into the air for no reason other than converting a treadmill workload into cash. So I hope that both my video and a short metaphor like that gets kind of your head around what's going on here, from the meminess of what's going on to the technology of what's going on. And so, Chris Niddle, for putting that much effort into a metaphor and helping me even get my head around it just a little bit more, you are now an honorary member of the facility, and now you get a plaque. Or a tiny little coffee cup, which again contains pure caffeine, the effects of which may vary from person to person. I wonder what would actually happen if I drank this volume of pure caffeine. Let's find out. I'm okay. I wouldn't worry about it. We have Debbie Dobby with the 20. Says the order of magnitude of cryptocurrency mining is still far below that of transportation, moving, heating, water, and heating and ventilation and air conditioning. Making crypto green is important, but until then, lower your hot water heater and adjust your thermostat. Well, yes, we need to attack climate change and environmental issues on all fronts. But in terms of addressing crypto and its energy use specifically, there are ways that you can immediately drop its energy utilization. But yes, in general, you should be saving energy, of course. The real RMG with the 5 says, "Hey Kyle, I was wondering if you're familiar with the story of the Radium Girls, and if so, will we get a Half-Life history about them?" Yes, I am familiar with the Radium Girls, but for Half-Life histories, I like to do stories that aren't super, super, super well known, because I don't want to retread ground or kind of copy people or not add anything to the conversation that's in my voice and my style. And the Radium Girls, there's been so much written about them. There's many books. I think there might be a movie about the Radium Girls. So even though it's fascinating, it's probably something I won't cover in my little series because there's already been so much coverage of it. But in terms of a topic that there's been a lot about, but I think I can add something unique to it, when I travel to the Chernobyl exclusion zone for a full week of me being in person in the power plant, I'm hoping to capture and bring you footage and conversation of stuff that you've never seen before. And I think that will be really unique. Brian Schmidt, with Canadian 5, says, "Kyle, it's my 42nd birthday. Glad you're streaming tonight. Happy birthday, Brian. Happy birthday, Brian. I hope you're having a fantastic, what's it called? Birthday? I'm a human. You can't prove that I'm not." Sean Willem says, "You're going to Chernobyl? That sounds awesome." Well, yeah. Koopa, my friend Koopa, your little Half-Life series? He says that after getting the latest video to trending. Yeah, we were top. The latest Chernobyl video was number 6 in the world trending for about 24 hours, which is pretty fun. But do you know what's not fun? An invasion of sea snot. This is not good. What you're seeing here is a photo of Turkey's coast. And off the coast of Turkey right now, they're having a sea snot invasion. Or what the president calls, what did he call it? A mucilage calamity. A, that's cool. B, that's actually the title of the next Breath of the Wild game. Breath of the Wild 2, Mucilage Calamity. But what you're seeing here is an invasion of the Turkish coast by sea snot. What is this stuff? Why does it look like this? And what is going on? Well, the first thing that you have to understand is that snot is everywhere. You can GIF that if you want. Snot is everywhere, especially in the ocean. Basically, every organism produces some sort of mucus. You do in your cavities to help things stay moist when they need to, help the motion of eating and drinking and all that stuff. But everything produces snot, and usually when this biological slime is produced and moves into the environment, something like the ocean can, quote, handle it, deal with it. It becomes marine snow to feed organisms that are lower oceanic zones where light doesn't reach, and usually it's not a problem. But what you're seeing is a large-scale mucilage calamity here in Turkey, to the point where the president has ordered people in various governmental agencies to go and vacuum up as much snot along the coast as they possibly can. This is an issue because it's literally killing the ecosystem. When you have this much snot in the area, it darkens water, which interferes with photosynthesis. It blankets seafloors, which can basically, it's like this is like the equivalent of finding the ocean ecosystem in a hospital bed and putting a pillow over its face. Just, shh, now I'll get all the money from the inheritance. Like that. The culprit, the person putting the pillow over the face of the ocean, is phytoplankton. Usually, phytoplankton mucus, a type of algae that produces small bits of mucus. Usually the mucus from phytoplankton, these algae, these little boys, usually this mucus turns into marine snow. And if you've never heard the term before, marine snow is all those little particles that it looks like are floating near the bottom of the ocean, and it becomes food for other organisms. Yes, I know that's gross, but everything eats everything. But what has happened here is that there is twofold. And the first is a pollution problem. When an ecosystem has evolved over millions, if not billions of years to have a certain relationship with the environment based on what is available for them to consume in the environment. So for billions of years, these phytoplankton have been, taking in nutrients and expelling mucus, and that mucus would go on as marine snow to feed other organisms, and you wouldn't have these invasion, this mucilage calamity that would wipe everything out. Except now that humans have come along, humans produce a lot of what's called runoff, agricultural runoff. So when we put a lot of nutrients and chemicals on our crops in our soil, it supercharges the growing process, and it allows us to do what we do on a global scale in terms of producing food for billions of people. But when it rains, a lot of this excess nutrient and chemical that is not natural to the ecosystem, when it rains, gets drained off into the oceans. And this runoff interacts with the ecosystem. Either the organisms that are usually there intake this excess nutrient and then produce something that's an excess, like this snot, which is the case of phytoplankton, that are taking in agricultural runoff and producing so much snot that it's blanketing Turkey. Or you could get a case like the dead zone at the bottom of the United States, where in the Gulf of Mexico, there's been so much agricultural runoff that there is literally a dead zone where the dissolved oxygen content has now become so low because of the chemicals and the carbon flowing into that system. The oxygen levels are so low that fish can't breathe in the water there, and it's a dead zone. This is a different kind of dead zone where we're feeding phytoplankton too much stuff and pollution, and they're producing this pollutant in return. The second part of this mucilage calamity is the ocean itself. Now, yeah, it does get this bad. That's all that mucus there too. And what's happening is that as the Earth is getting warmer from global warming, again, think of how this has been for billions of years, but now, as the Earth is getting hotter, the surface of the water is getting hotter, and that changes the gradient of ocean systems. So when you have hot water and cold water, they tend to mix as temperatures differ and densities change and that kind of thing. And so there's this natural mixing. But now, with climate change, you have this unnatural mixing event where phytoplankton can be producing at the top here all this mucus. Then the currents are going down and down, but this mucus has some buoyancy to it, and so it settles in the middle here, all this mucus and all this gross stuff, it settles. And now outside of sunlight, direct sunlight, outside of all this, what could be moving it around and cleaning it up, it stays there, stays in this oceanic zone, and it grows and it grows and it gets grosser and grosser, and it just becomes more and more massive. So we have two things going on, an excess of pollutants in Turkey and climate change altering the oceanic system in such a way to make it even worse. Unfortunately, as you're seeing in this previous photograph, this is too little too late. Just vacuuming it all up is not going to get to the heart of the problem. The heart of the problem is climate change and pollutants from runoffs, agricultural runoffs, and agricultural runoff is a problem all around the world. I mentioned the Gulf of Mexico, but it's a problem everywhere for all ecosystems. And so I wanted to bring this up because it shows the interconnectivity of the system here. We have to attack everything at once. It's not just going to be painting the roofs of buildings white. It's not just going to be electric cars. It's not just going to be dealing with agricultural runoff. It has to be a coordinated attack on this grandest of problems, or else it's not just going to be longer wildfire seasons and worse hurricanes and that kind of thing. It's also going to be to the point where the Earth gets up out of that hospital bed, forces the blanket, the pillow off of its own face, and then says, you think you're stronger than Mother Earth? Beep, beep. And then puts it over your own face. I might need to take a break. Might be losing my mind a little bit. Milton Man says global warming is a lie designed to control you. No, that's not true. Control you how? Global warming is a lie designed to control you, he said, using all of the world's best technology with all of the world's information at his fingertips to say something that's demonstrably false. You don't seem very controlled to me. In fact, you seem free to make completely nonsensical statements. If only we could be that free, huh? The Phoenix System says the ecosystems that support us are collapsing under us. Like I said, we have to take this seriously. The ocean is warming. It's becoming more acidic. Deforestation. Rising temperatures. Increasing extreme weather events. It's only going to get worse before it gets better. I like that the conspiracy theorists, and I don't get many of them in this chat because, you know, we're a science show, but I like that conspiracy theorists often like to say that, like, you're sheeple or you're being controlled and you're just saying what they want you to say, man. And they say that usually from the freest countries on earth using free technology, and they're not oppressed, they're not in prison, no one's being arrested. It's almost like there's nothing controlling about it. And it's almost like it's more an ideology than an actual actionable claim. But why? What? Line 2? Okay, 1 second. Hey, Department of Defense, what's going... No, I only mentioned that... Okay, well, I'm still getting my check, right? Yeah. No, I said climate change 5 times, just like you said, and then you buy me a Ferrari. Those were the terms. Don't you hang... Never borrow money from Al Gore. He'll never buy you your 5 Ferraris for shilling about climate change. Ugh. He said I'd get rich. Gore! That sounds silly. It's because it is. Troy C. with a New Zealand $5 says, doesn't special relativity explain the Fermi paradox? The Fermi paradox is if the statistics are so amenable to life in the universe, aliens, by which I mean there's so many planets that we think are out there in the universe that it just makes sense that some of them, other than us, should have life on it. Even if life is 1 in 100 billion, there'd be like 100 different civilizations just in the Milky Way. But we haven't seen any yet, or we haven't been contacted or observed any yet. So that's the paradox. It seems likely, but yet we haven't seen anything. Why not? Does special relativity explain that? I don't know which part of special relativity that you mean, but a time and a distance could be part of the great filter, right? Where an alien civilization could be so far away from us that we will, because of the finite speed that light travels, we will never, ever observe them. And with the expansion of the universe and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, that could be one explanation, that the universe is so big that entire civilizations could be born and die out before you ever observe them. Because light doesn't reach you instantaneously like it does when you're looking at my face. Right? People laughing, saying I'm speaking truths. What? Beta Spy Dog with 5 says, what if global warming was majorly started by humans, but is now a runaway process with things like permafrost melting? It's all together. Humans are the single biggest cause of climate change. There are knock-on effects, like the melting of Arctic permafrost, releasing trapped methane, and methane is a very, very strong greenhouse gas just based on the chemistry of how it interacts in the atmosphere. It's 4 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And that's a positive feedback loop, right? Melting permafrost, methane in the atmosphere, more heating stored in the environment, more global warming, which melts more permafrost, which releases more methane. That's a runaway positive feedback loop. But I'm not sure what your question is. It's all related. It's not like global warming will stop being majorly caused by people. Have time for just a couple more questions here. Task Force 101 says, keep the dialogue open, Kyle. Thanks for all you do. Hey. Okay. You can ask me any old thing. Alex Duenas says, I am vaccinated. Does that mean I am Magneto? No. It only means you're Magneto. Get vaccinated, because while it won't make you Magneto, you'll still be pretty neato to me. Lame. One of my security team says NE-to. You get it. Ulamaru says, why not bioengineer something that can help us prevent global warming? Some sort of carbon capturing plant that puts it all in the roots. I mean, that's what plants do. They sequester carbon from the atmosphere, and they use it to grow themselves in cellulose. Like, scientists and engineers are hard at work in every sector trying to figure out this problem. Carbon sequestration is only one of the possible routes and one of the tactics we could use to combat climate change. There'd be so many problems that you'd have, so many caveats that you'd have to get into that I'm not an expert in, from, growing time and seasonality and surface area. I don't know the feasibility of just using something like that. It's going to be a multi-pronged approach, if anything. But I say that to give you a fun little fact if you didn't know. But trees, the majority of a tree's mass comes directly out of the air. Over 90% of a tree's mass is the carbon from carbon dioxide. So a tree, in some sense of the word, is mostly air. And so think of the carbon sequestration there, and think of what deforestation really means when the lungs of the planet are no longer storing carbon in that kind of way. Brian Murray, the 5. This is a question from the Vodlance. Is it possible for something like the World Spear on Agent Denur from Doom Eternal to exist? Yes. Hell is real, and it's other people. Avabeth McGee with a $1 and no comment, just saying, Kyle, take another sip of that sweet, sweet game fuel. Sure. Oh, I should have drank it out of my tiny... Look how much smaller it is when I'm far away, with Lola in the background here. But Kyle, what's that engine powering? It looks shut down. What about the electricity? Don't worry about it. Let's go with our final commenter question here. Mac Attack with the 5 says, thanks, Kyle. Your video gave me the courage to see a specialist. It turns out I am on the spectrum for Asperger's. Hey, I am proud of you, Mac Attack, for getting the information and or help that you wanted or needed. For me, coming to terms with wanting to see a professional and want to explore my own mind a little bit, helped me understand myself, helped others understand me, and how I operate in the world a bit better. So if that helped you, if I could be of any help to you at all, that is honoring, and it humbles me, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors, as do I to you, all the viewers. Thank you so much for joining me live for this edition of Office Hours. Wow, we talked a lot about a lot of stuff, from climate change and snot to magnetic people and why you will never be Magneto, but you can still be Magneto in my eyes. Thank you so much for joining me this week at the facility. This week we'll be putting out one of our, maybe video 1 of 2 of why I was in New York getting a sunburn without the sun. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to continue on this conversation after this live stream is over, you can always go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill, where you can sign up for multiple tiers worth your time. And you can get anything from seeing videos early, to joining our Discord to talk with me every day, to get videos early, to get private members only live streams with me, which I just remembered will be happening sometime this week, probably Sunday. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I'm going to have a great day. I'm going to eat a big sandwich and pet some cats. I hope you can do something that will give you the similar amount of serotonin as that. Have a wonderful night, and until next week, where I talk to you live, be nice to each other. Because this... Oh, wow, my hand gets so much bigger. It's all we got. This is what we got. This is...